Hello there, welcome again to another edition of the Book Knowledge Share. Thank you so much for being here. Jordan Stevens here with another weekly book to share with you. This week I'm going to talk a little bit about management and corporate management. And the book is called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Kim Scott, to me, is somebody fantastic. She has worked for literally every single one of the top technology firms down in Silicon Valley. She worked with Google and Apple and Dropbox and so many great companies down there. And she has a lot of things to share about what to do as a manager, how to grow great teams, how to grow exceptional teams. So if you're into management, if you want to develop a better high-performing team, definitely check out this book. And if you've read the book, don't forget to let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. And here are some of my top takeaways that I got from this book. I got quite a few, so I'm going to try and break it down a little bit, but here we go. Let's do it. So, as a manager, you're really responsible for performance and making sure that performance is relevant to what the company is trying to do. And so some of the things you got to do, because you got a lot of things on your plate, you want to make sure you spend time with your top performers, and also be sure to recognize your steady producers as well. And the reason being is that a lot of times your top performers, those are the guys who are really kind of getting things done, and they're really making things happen, and you want to make sure that you get rid of those roadblocks that are in front of them. So make sure you spend time with those top performers, get to know who they are, find out how to motivate them so that you can get even more performance out of them, right? Okay, so speaking of getting more performance out of your people, make sure, as I said, get to know them really well, find out what motivates them. However, one of the things you got to do, if you're giving feedback, there are three parts to it, as Kim Scott mentioned in the book, and there are three parts to it. So the first is situation, second is behavior, and last but not least, the impact. So when you're giving feedback, a really simple way, a rubric, if you will, to think about how to give feedback is to first of all mention the situation. What was the situation? What was the behavior that caused that situation? And what was the impact of that situation? So if I'm giving feedback to you, it might be like, hey John, you know when you had that presentation there, when you spoke very clearly and you had a clearly defined agenda, that worked really well. That gave the entire group an indication as to where this presentation is going to go. Can you keep doing that? So what's really cool about that feedback model there is that it allows the person to figure out what were the behaviors that worked really well. And what's interesting about it is you can use that both for positive and for constructive feedback. So give that a try next time you have to give feedback. Situation, behavior, impact. That's all you need. Okay, so another thing that you got to really understand as a manager, I thought this was really crucial, is that just because you're a manager doesn't mean that you get to decide what happens. You got to bring people along with you. You have to be a leader. You have to persuade. You have to get buy-in from others. You don't get to just decide what that person's going to do. You got to bring them along with you, okay? So keep that in mind as you are putting things out to your organization. Make sure that you understand that you got to get buy-in as well. Okay. I really love this next point as well. And this is that relationship power is the most powerful. As a manager, you really have a couple different aspects of power. One of them being your managerial power. That's one of them. Expertise power is another one. And the last one is relationship power. Those are the three main sources of power. And of those three, the most important, the most powerful of those is relationship. So if you build a really strong relationship, like think about your relationship with your wife or your significant other, there's a lot of times where you're able to, say, hey, honey, can you get a beer out of the fridge? I don't know. But if you think of something, really, really simple, you can persuade people a little bit easier when you have that relationship built up, when they understand that you trust them and that they trust you. So there's that give and take, right? Where they know that you're not trying to create an imbalance of power, right? Just because you're a manager. Now, as a manager, there are times when you have to use those other sources of power, but just remember that relationship and building relationship. So the time that you use to build relationship is quite valuable in terms of your overall performance. So think about that as a manager, build relationship. Okay, this is one thing that I know personally I need to work on, and this is about when you're receiving feedback. When you are receiving feedback from whether it's a boss or a direct report or a colleague of yours who is on the same level, you want to remember that the object during this time when you're being criticized is to understand the feedback, not to defend yourself. I'm terrible at this. I know I need to work on this quite a lot, but when you receive feedback, it's your role, your job to really understand the feedback, where it's coming from. Try to get examples, try to dig in a little bit deeper so that you can make those adjustments, you can make those changes down the road. Cool? All right. I got 2 more points for you that I picked out of this book. Yeah, 2. And then, we'll call it a day. So, next point here. If you are finding on your team that you are not getting any negative feedback, then there is actually an issue. There is an issue because there's always things that are going wrong. There are always ways that we can improve. If you're not hearing anything from your team, that means they're probably not trusting of you. They're a little bit afraid. So you need to find a way to build that trust. You need to find a way to understand what's really going on within your team. Okay? So no feedback. If there's no news, that's bad news. Okay? All right? So make sure you dig in deep. Don't try to skirt around it. Don't try to avoid it. And you'll be much better off down the road. Last thing for you is to focus on public praise when you are giving praise in public. To focus on the behaviors that you want to see more of. So if you have some sort of an award ceremony at the end of the year where you're giving away top prizes to your top performance, make sure when you're giving that public praise that you mention the feedback, mention the things that they've done behaviorally that caused them to be a top performer. And this will help encourage others to provide that behavior. We don't want to be using things like, hey, John's a really good looking guy, or Joe, he got really fantastic email skills. What does that mean? How does that help the team perform better? And at the end of the day, it's behaviors that we're looking for, not necessarily specific qualities in a person. We're looking for the behaviors that they interact with every day, the behaviors that they provide on a day-to-day basis that really drives businesses forward. So as a manager, it's really important for you to focus on behaviors. And speaking of behavior, provide some comments down below. Let me know what you want to see more of, what you'd like to see less of. If you've read this book, if you've checked out the book in the past, provide some comments on the book. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what your thoughts are. And in the meantime, if you haven't read the book, then, be sure to check out some other book knowledge shares. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and until next week, I'll be seeing you around. So take care. Jordan, signing off. Thank you so much.